now coming to our third speaker. He's also a global shaper at the World Economic Forum, Joey Wilson, senior consultant on EY Parthenon's life science strategy team in Germany. Joey is a firm believer in cross-disciplinary knowledge. He pursued his formal education in 3 fields that he's passionate about in the US, China, and UK. And these 3 fields, he believes, govern our modern world: science, business, and policy. He's worked with the US President Joe Biden to address social issues. He's also patented a medical device simplifying the diagnosis of breast cancer. So let's put our hands together for Joey Wilson as he sheds light on healthcare and pharma, post-COVID, and emerging opportunities. All yours, Joey.
Thank you, everybody. Good morning. Good morning to everybody here at the summit. Good morning to everybody watching at home. So hello to my friends and family in the UK, US, and other places as well. I know you're tuned in. But yes, I'm here today to talk about healthcare and pharmaceuticals post-COVID and the shifting paradigms and emerging opportunities both globally and for Pakistan. So that's what we'll be discussing today. You may ask yourself, go back, why am I here talking about medicine? Well, as you can see in the lower left-hand corner, I was at the Future Summit in 2020 in Karachi. So it's a true honor to be back. Thank you to Asfar for the invitation again. And I love Pakistan. It's been an amazing time here, and I'm back here talking about medicine because I believe there are so many opportunities in the pharmaceutical industry here to innovate and really grow and take advantage of these growth opportunities that are emerging post-COVID. So just as a brief background in biomedical engineering from Clemson. I was a Schwarzman Scholar at Tsinghua University in Beijing, China, where I looked into global affairs. I have a master's in oncology from Cambridge, and I currently work at EY Parthenon as a life science strategy consultant. So I do have a background in healthcare, also policy and business. So hopefully today I can give you an idea of how all these things come together in a world post-COVID and the impacts and implications on Pakistan. So what did we talk about in 2020? And honestly, we made some predictions. We talked about mRNA-based medicines, and when you're thinking about that, you may know Moderna and Pfizer, all these vaccines that came out, but the technology there is much even more than COVID vaccines. It's going to be really, really transformational for the world, and COVID was an opportunity for these vaccines to take hold and this technology to be proven with a proof of concept. But what I predicted back then, there are some benefits. They're cheap. They're fast to produce. There's a high level of safety. They're pretty effective. But there are also challenges, as we remember, in manufacturing, which still exist, supply chain logistics and storage with cold chain. And those are things that still have to be worked through to some extent. But really, this opportunity emerged. Now, everybody knows what mRNA is. Before COVID, nobody would have known what a PCR test is, which makes me laugh as a scientist because we would run those all the time in the lab to test different things, but now people know what PCR is. People also know mRNA. They may not know all of the science behind it, but they know the verbiage. So there's a huge opportunity here, and it's in fields not only in infectious disease, but especially oncology, rare disease, etc. So what's happened since? There have been mega deals, with Sanofi buying Elevate Bio for $3.2 billion, and most recently, Pfizer investing in Beam Therapeutics for $1.3 billion. And all of these are in the spaces that I mentioned. So this has come to fruition. Secondly, I talked about the 3 Ps of the future of medicine, and other speakers, Doug and Selena, have already mentioned these. There's precision, prediction, and personalization. So in terms of precision, cell and gene therapies, we've seen lots of approvals in the past years. These are emerging, and these are actually here. They have arrived. In terms of prediction, Selena talked about it in terms of digital health. You've got the Internet of Things, AI, blockchain, all of these technologies coming together to integrate data and make real-time analyses to help you understand how to be healthier in the long term and what actions you can take now to be healthier. And then lastly, there's personalization. We understand so much about the makeup of ourselves. It's not just genomics anymore. It's not just about your DNA. It's the whole omic landscape. There are all kinds of things we can look into and understand about people. Companies like Google are collecting data and trying to make sense of it, and honestly, we're almost there. So I still think strongly that these 3 Ps are what's going to drive us forward. And then lastly, I gave 5 predicted future trends, and I think we can look at some of these briefly. So is data ubiquitous? Yes, it's everywhere. We're using all of the data still. bring it together using these technologies. 2, are medical devices integrated into daily life? Who's wearing an Apple Watch right now? Lots of people in the audience are wearing Apple Watches, Fitbits. Even just your cell phone collects so much health data, and it's ubiquitous, it's integrated. Maybe at some point it will be even more integrated inside of us, but currently it's external and it's there. Thirdly, doctors and tech uniting. These things are happening as well. In the clinic, AI and these digital technologies that Selena mentioned are used to try to understand what's going on and assist doctors. I don't think that doctors will disappear. Never. That's not going to happen. But doctors will be supported by technology. Fourthly, medicine is becoming more preventative. As we understand more and more about ourselves, we can try to prevent things from happening based on our genetic makeup, our family history, and all kinds of things. So people are really, especially after COVID, pursuing preventative health care. And lastly, caution with innovation. Yesterday, the senator talked about climate change and all of these trends that are happening nowadays, and it's scary, to be honest. I'm a little terrified about the things that are ongoing now, and a lot of these innovations in science that are coming have to consider sustainability. They have to consider ethics. They have to consider all of these things. So all of these things are still relevant. But what's happened since we've gone through COVID? I put up 2 quotes, one about Pakistan, one about the rest of the world. From the Chief Digital and Tech Officer at Pfizer, the healthcare industry is being rewired across the entire patient journey. The pandemic acted as a catalyst, making people more fluent in using digital technologies and more receptive to virtual engagement. So that's one trend I'll mention that Selena already touched on. And then secondly, Pakistan. The pandemic has shown that Pakistan can prevail when faced with any challenge. This reflects the diligence, commitment, and capability of the entire chain, from top to bottom and in all directions around. So COVID has proved Pakistan's mettle. COVID has proved the rest of the world's mettle. So let's talk about what's happening nowadays. So there are some global drivers I don't think I could have predicted in 2020. The huge global economic uncertainty that has emerged, the conflict between nations, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the disruption of value chains. At the time it was emerging, but now it's become a huge, huge issue, supply chains being disrupted. Fourth, we knew about it, but it's become even worse. We've seen in the past year in the UK, temperatures reaching 40 degrees. Pakistan has seen torrential rain. Climate change is an emergency, and it's coming faster than I guess we thought at the time. And lastly, of course, aging populations. In the next years, 10% of the world's population, or currently 10% of the world's population is 65 years or older. So chronic disease is on the rise, which really impacts our field. But what does this mean? So there are healthcare trends emerging from COVID, and I would point out specifically 7 things, which I'll each briefly touch upon. So firstly, alternative care delivery models. Companies like Amazon, for example, in the United States, are buying out kind of pharmaceutical players and pharmaceutical delivery. Things are moving into the home. Care delivery is moving into the home, and this is revolutionizing the way we interact with our systems. Secondly, digital engagement, tool deployment. Nowadays, you're really comfortable with telemedicine. You're happy to see a doctor when you're at home or anywhere, and this makes care accessible. It's something that people can get always, no matter what. Thirdly, we're transitioning from this idea of volume to value. This is a really trendy thing in healthcare. In the US, and I believe also in Pakistan, hospitals are compensated based on fee for service. This means that you go to the doctor, they perform something, and then they're compensated. But nowadays, we're bringing value into healthcare, which means it's not about the services provided, it's about the outcomes that patients have. And this is really starting to transition systems in an interesting way and revolutionizing the way care is thought about and delivered. Fourthly, the capability of regulation to be agile, which maybe makes people laugh a little bit, but really, during COVID, we saw all of these things, like the FDA, for example, approved drugs at an unprecedented speed. And this was really amazing, and we can expect our systems to be better. Regulation and government and bureaucracy can be good for the pharmaceutical industry, and it can be good for all of us. So we have to find the balance. Fifthly, the critical nature of supply chains. We all know about it. I won't talk too much about it, but you really have to think about domestic production. when you can't import things or things are disrupted, it really makes you think about what you need as a country and what you have to create yourselves. Sixthly, there's a push towards holistic health and wellness. Basically, people are more concerned about their health now, and that impacts the way they interact with themselves and interact with the environment. So this will come into play a little bit later when I talk about nutraceuticals and vitamins. Everywhere around the world, I believe people are really pursuing this. And lastly, there's the relevance of larger societal issues. COVID really unmasked how these things are happening and, the dynamics behind them. And equality and things like that, they're very important in our industry. So these are all things to think about. So based on that, let's talk about Pakistan briefly. Doug talked about this, but I wanted to give a few numbers. Firstly, the median age in Pakistan right now is 22.8. 60% of the population is under 30. 65% of the population is under 35 years of age. People may think that chronic disease isn't a relevant thing in Pakistan because of that, but in fact, chronic disease is super relevant. If you ask anybody in the pharmaceutical industry, things like diabetes, heart disease, there are things that the system has to consider. So even though the population is young, and that's great in terms of industry and work and production and the economy, it's something you still have to be cautious in terms of healthcare. People really have to watch out and make sure they can pursue preventative care. In terms of exports, Pakistan's export currently in the pharmaceutical market is roughly 200 million. Doug mentioned the whole industry growing to 5 billion, but right now it's a very small export industry. But McKinsey predicted with full potential, this could grow to 1 billion very quickly. That's a 500% increase, and that's something that you should consider. Internet penetration is 54%, so digital technologies, as Selena mentioned, could be good. And a really big problem right now is the reliance on imports. 95% of APIs, which are active pharmaceutical ingredients, excipients, etc., are imported to Pakistan. Most of these from India and China. And this is a huge problem right now for the industry that has to be addressed. So what are the challenges right now that really Pakistan has to overcome? It's not an easy road, but it's something that I truly believe Pakistan's industry can overcome and be it's already a leading industry here, but be really cementing itself globally, not only domestically. So there are 6 problems I see: the sourcing of APIs, price control policies, the speed of new medicine approvals, lack of IP protection, bulk packaging regulations, which hurts generic and biosimilar manufacturers, and external regulatory compliance, meaning if you want to export, you need FDA labs, and currently Pakistan doesn't have these. So let's talk about the 3 opportunities I see for Pakistan's industry right now. 3 main things, going from most realistic, in my opinion, to most difficult but still realistic. So first would be vaccine fill and finish or complete production. You may wonder, what is fill and finish? Fill and finish is when you import something that's finished and then put it in packaging. So Pakistan could become Pakistan by packaging lots of pharmaceuticals. Or you could completely manufacture vaccines. Why? Because currently you're a part of Gavi's international program where you can import vaccine. Immunization is a super important topic in Pakistan, and the programs here are absolutely amazing. COVID showed resilience there, and a lot of great things happened, not only for the COVID vaccine, but also for general vaccines that everybody should take when they're young. But that's coming to an end. There were some international opportunities that showed your ability to manufacture things at a high scale during COVID, like Renovavir you took and you were able to manufacture here for the US. But it's a little complicated. There'll be close collaboration needed with the government, including DRAP, your agency, and you're going to need increased capabilities and capacities. Secondly, off-patent drugs and nutraceuticals. Currently, India and China are moving more into the value-added pharmaceutical space, meaning they're manufacturing more complex products. But for low and middle income countries, there's still a large need for other generic products, off-patent, and also, as I said before, with the focus on health and wellness, nutraceuticals. Martin Dow, the local pharmaceutical company, which is giant, does produce nutraceuticals and does do some of this work. But as an industry, this can really grow and fill a global demand, which is still high. The market is booming, and this is something that Pakistan can, and I believe will do. And you all can compete on quality and cost. Once again, it takes some increased capacities and capabilities, but you can do it. Lastly would be the production of APIs domestically. This is a bit challenging. This is a bit difficult, but it would be really important because when you're importing the raw materials, it's really tough to, be resolute when the supply chain is down, and you don't want to be reliant on other countries. So you could build capacities and capabilities in API production. There are a lot of challenges here, though. It's a lot of investment. It's hard to compete on quality and on price and in terms of policy because there have been so many people in this industry, in the region, producing for a long time. But I still believe it would be great. And this has already started to happen. A company called City Pharmaceuticals IPO'd here to try to start to build factories producing API locally. But it hasn't really taken hold so far. So there needs to be government investment there. That's something you could definitely pursue. But the problem is, who watches the watcher? How do you know for sure it's produced here? How do you know for sure it's used here? That's one of the main issues I see, but this has emerged. But these are the three opportunities I see for Pakistan, and I'd love to talk more with everybody about it. So just wrapping up here, I know I'm running short on time. Forces are gathering steam now, but we must add in human agency. People can choose which direction they want to push themselves, their societies, and their world. In fact, there is more leeway now. In most eras, history proceeds along a set path and change is hard. But the novel coronavirus has upended our society. Things are already changing, and in that atmosphere, further change becomes easier than ever. So just wanted to wrap up with one quote, which is, Tu shahin hai parvaze kam tera. Tu shahin hai parvaze kam tera. Tere samne asama or beyond. Which means, you are the great falcon, your passion is flight. Look ahead, there are more skies to transcend. Thank you.